don't like that corner. Boom. 1400 corruption. 1400 corruption. 1409. Let's go, dude. Yeah, we're gonna tank this. I'm just gonna eat it. Thank you. Thank you, sir. We'll tank all of that. I want him to Kamehameha me in the face. Come on. Do it. Do it, you won't. You won't. You won't. Go on. I'm taking as much damage as I possibly can here. Do it. Do it. Do it. Oh, right in the face. Yo, guys, what is up? Moxie here in our last Epoch video, and today we're going over my guide to our MultiSmite Void Knight. Now, this is an update. I posted a bunch of, videos for this character. We leveled with hammers, then we were doing self-cast smite, then we swapped to, multi-smite at around... when we were at 300, 400 corruption as our damage was starting to really slow down. And now we're playing MultiSmite, as I'm dubbing it. And now we've pushed up to 1,400 corruption. This is the most successful character that I've ever played in last Epoch. After making 20 plus characters, I've never had a character that is this strong. And this build is just crazy. It has great clear speed. It does a ton of damage. It's got good survivability. And there's so many more gear upgrades that we can do for it. I'm still wearing a bunch of T6 armor. And so I want to break down not only what we're doing with the build, but different avenues for getting more survivability, more damage, and kind of just explain everything about this build. I hope you guys enjoy the full breakdown. Let's get right into it. So I explained this in the last video, but just kind of a quick refresher course on how this build functions at a fundamental level. This is a build that is scaling melee attack speed for the skill Multi-Strike. Multi-Strike is a skill that when we swing our sword, we build up stacks of armament. Armament stacks build up, and for every additional stack of armament, we cause an additional sword to strike a nearby enemy. Hence, multi-striking, we're able to attack very quickly, and with this, whatever our melee attack speed is, we basically get 4 times that because we're getting 4 weapons attacking all alongside us. Now, with multi-strike, there is a node called Hollow Arsenal, which allows each additional sword that would be created to be replaced with smite. So if we're self-casting with this build, if we're casting down a smite, every time I click smite, we get 1 smite. There's a node to get a chance for 2, but with multi-strike, every time I click, I'm getting 4 smites, and we can scale melee attack speed way more than we can scale cast speed, and with self-casting smite, that smite will only hit 1 enemy or in 1 area, versus with multi-strike, we're scaling some AoE so that our swords can go and hit a ton of enemies. So when we're in a pack, we're hitting a ton of enemies with smite, not just 1 enemy. Our smites are going to be kind of going everywhere. And so we've got better clear speed, and with the node in multi-strike called Bladestorm, all of our multi-strikes can now hit a single target. And so when we go up against this single target, now it looks like we just have an orbital beam basically coming down, because we're getting so many smites per second. And that is where all of our damage is coming from, and that is why melee attack speed is so important for this build, is because it's going to cause just rains of smite down on our enemies, and then everything else that we're doing is going to be complementing that and helping us do more damage and get more survivability. So now that we've kind of gone over the core of the build, let's go into all of our skill points and some of the adjustments that I've made to be pushing into 1400 corruption. One of the first adjustments we made was to smite. We added more points to atonement. Now when we were self-casting smite, we only needed 2 points of atonement because we could make it cost 9% of our health every cast. And then with the passive time and faith, every time that we would cast, one smite would cost 9 health, but we'd get 10 health back. Well, now we're multi-striking, and now we're costing 8 smites for every 1 multi-strike, and this only gives us HP back when we're directly casting smite. So we were just draining our health like crazy with 5 out of 5 points in atonement, or without 5 out of 5 points, and I think it was leading to some deaths. We leech so much on this build that like our health would just be like yo-yoing like crazy. We basically heal our entire health bar every time we attack, but it was dropping so fast with smites, and I think it was leading to some inconsistencies and some deaths. And so just for pushing really high, we've added this to be 5 out of 5 so that we're really never causing any self-harm anymore with us. With this build to ourselves. And the other thing that we did is we actually took some points out of Deep Impact, which was Crit Multiplier. Crit Multiplier is technically additive with other sources of Crit Multiplier, and we put more points into Blinding Flash. Blinding Flash is multiplicative with other multipliers, so this is actually more damage for us, and Blind Chance is actually really important for our survivability. Currently on this build, Blind is our only source of not getting critted. In the super high tiers, if an enemy crits versus when they wouldn't crit, that can be resulting in a one-shot, and enemies that are blinded cannot be crit. So we've actually got a fair bit of blind chance on this build, so that anything that comes in our vicinity, our smites, our devouring orbs, shooting abyssal echoes, everything is going to be blinded all around us, and so nothing can crit, which is just another big source of survivability. And so that is our smite tree. Then we go to Symbols of Hope. Symbols of Hope, we've got on the Unwavering Faith to give us 20% of our health every time a symbol activates. As you can see, our symbols are activating very quickly. So that's every time that little goes up, that's 20% of our health back, which is just nice survivability, especially if we're not leeching off of something, if we're running around. And then we have a bunch of points into Heavenly Justice to give us 20% crit chance per symbol, which is, 80% crit chance. We get Symbols of Despair to give us more void damage per active symbol, and Decree of Flame gives us flat void damage because this changes this into void. And then we're making the symbols give us haste and give us more max symbols. This just auto activates. You never need to click this button. It's a ton of extra damage for us. With multi-strike, as I kind of stated earlier and explained with this, we're trying to get as many stacks of multi-strike and armament as possible, hitting in the largest area possible. Note that we do not care about the damage of multi-strike. We are not scaling melee damage on this build. Multi-strike is doing maybe 1/100th of our damage. And so we're going to get all the things that make more swords happen, give us more stacks of swords, give us Blade Storms hitting multiple enemies. And then I maxed out Sweeping Blows to get more target area. More target area is more clear speed for us. I put 1 point into Victory Strikes. I don't think it's really necessary because it gives us an additional sword attack on kill. But, I don't really know if Multi-Strike's actually doing enough damage to kill things. But I threw it in there because I thought it was cool. Next up, we've changed some of our prioritization for Devouring Orb. In, 1400 corruption, Devouring Orb actually does kill most squishies. It one-shots most squishies, but it's just such a smaller point of our damage now with how much damage Smite is dealing. And so we're scaling this to do a little bit more damage for us. And one of the big things is getting 5 out of 5 points into Void Adept. Void Adept gives us 10% more global void damage. So everything is just dealing 10% more damage. And if we get 90 plus vitality, that is doubled, which is ridiculous. And as you can see with this build, we've now made it to exactly 90 vitality. So Devouring Orb, I tried other things besides it. I was like, oh, maybe Devouring Orb isn't needed. This gives us so much extra damage. And we can also shred Void Reses with this while it's circling us around. And so that is the Devouring Orb tree. Note on basically anything that's, not 1000 plus corruption, you can kind of just run around on this build and Devouring Orbs will kill things for you. But once you're really pushing corruption, you're going to need to be casting multi-strike to kill stuff. And then lastly, we're using Anomaly. Anomaly is going to give us crit chance. It's going to make enemies take 50% increased void damage from all of our attacks, and manipulation gives us 20% more attack speed, which is awesome. So that is the anomaly tree. Next, we're going to talk about items because I have made a lot of changes to our items, and a lot of that is for survivability. There are things that we could be using to deal more damage, but we already deal a lot of damage. And one of the bigger issues once you're in really high corruptions is survivability. The amount of damage you do doesn't really matter if you're not able to stay alive. And so there's some really powerful item synergies that we're using to stay alive. One of the first ones that's a new pickup is the Seed of Ecazadrill. Not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly. This, I was getting like one shot in like 800 plus corruption. I put this on and all of a sudden I could face tank. And I kind of want to explain why this thing is so good, because it reads 25% of our damage dealt, or 25% of damage dealt to mana before health. So if an enemy is going to attack us, 25% of that damage is going to go at our mana. Now, you'd be like, well, you're not stacking a lot of mana on this build. We're not, but this is very useful because of the next line, and that is 55% of our endurance applies to all damage dealt to mana. So endurance is another survivability stat that's down here. And you can see that my endurance calculated damage reduction is capped right now. That means that any damage that is done to me below this yellow line, I get 60% extra damage reduction on top of. And because all damage, or 25% of damage, is going to go to my mana first, and then 50% of my endurance applies to that, I'm basically getting 30% extra DR to 25% of damage that's coming in, which is another massive just damage negation for us. It also has a chance to not take 0 damage when we get hit, and we get extra 7% of our max health gained as endurance threshold. So our endurance threshold is higher. So we've got, if an enemy gets me down to 1,500 HP, I take 60% DR, but I'm also getting my endurance applied to the top of my health bar and the bottom with this. So our endurance is going to apply to basically everything. It's going to apply to all damage dealt rather than just when we're low health. And that's super valuable. And then when we pair that with the Anchor of Oblivion, this can give us 25% increased armor as an implicit. Armor is another source of damage reduction. I've currently got 67% damage reduction from all hits with armor. And the big part of that is because of the Anchor of Oblivion, gives us way more armor, but it also gives us 40% endurance and 70 endurance threshold, and it gives us strength. Strength also gives us more armor, and so this is another huge survivability tool, and it's going to make, without this, we don't cap out DR from endurance, but with it, we get DR cap from endurance, which means that we just get way more survivability, and so these two are a really powerful combo to basically not be able to die. Now, the next combo that we're using with this build is the Wrong Wrap with the Inevitable Boots. Now, the Inevitable Boots are great because they roll with Vitality on them, which is something that we really care about. If I didn't explain that earlier, Smite's damage and Devour's damage all scale with Vitality, which is awesome. And the Erasing Strike, all those things don't really matter. The big thing is that these can roll a ton of movement speed on them, and then we can slam more movement speed. They also give us slow and chill immunity, which is super valuable. If we can't attack as fast, we don't deal as much damage, we don't leech as much health, but we're pairing that with the Wrong Wraps. These are a legendary wand that have a bunch of stats that you can completely ignore. The big thing here is that we get 3% increased spell damage per 1% increased movement speed. Now, you'll note that I am currently at 76% movement speed, and this wand also comes with a 31% chance to gain haste for 1 second on hit. That means if an enemy hits me, I have a 30% chance to get haste. Haste gives us an additional 30% movement speed, which puts us at over 100% movement speed, which makes the build feel great, but it also gives us 300% spell damage, and we can use other things to get even more movement speed while we're running around, and so this scales a ton of percentage increased spell damage, which is great. And then I slammed Crit Multi on this and Void Pen. Void Pen is really valuable. Enemies have so much damage negation, armor, resistances in the higher tiers. So being able to bypass that is super valuable for us. And that's kind of our weapon combo. We're also using the Grasp of the Blood Mage gloves. These are really great. because they also have more damage negation. 22% of hit damage taken from bosses and rare enemies is dealt over 4 seconds instead. That means that we're basically just negating 22% of the damage incoming. We leech so much on this build, and these also give us 1% of our spell damage, leeches health, and base crit, which allows us to get a 100% crit chance on Smite. And then we slam melee attack speed so that we can attack faster with these. We're also using the Brewmaster Buckle Belt. This gives us 11 vitality, or it can give us up to 14. It gives us percentage endurance, which is also a big part of our survivability. It gives us 10% of our max health gained as endurance for 4 seconds when we use a potion, which gives us more endurance threshold and extra health. This thing is just the best belt for survivability. And when we slam T7, increased health on it for even more survivability. And then some of the last things that we're using a Siphon of Anguish. This gives us void damage, leeches health, melee damage, leeches health, increased leech rate, increased movement speed, chance to apply doom, void pen with doom, and then I slammed crit chance, some void damage and stun avoidance on this. The main thing that you want on this would be crit chance and max health. These kind of rain down in LP. They're not that hard to get, at least with one. Try to get one with 2 for crit chance and health. And then the last ring that I'm using is just a coral ring with vitality, crit chance, void damage, health, physical resistance, and mine has like minion dodge rating on it. There is a like flame ring that gives us swiftness that I'm thinking about using. But right now I just really wanted the like extra health and crit chance that this ring can give, and it gives us vitality just enough to get to 90. So this thing has been perfect for me. The very last 2 items, or 3 items that we're rocking, are a chest piece. On this, I wanted a ton of vitality, so we've got T6 vitality. This is a piece of gear I could definitely upgrade. We've got the +9 spell damage, increased void damage. That is the second best thing you could roll on a prefix. We've got some lightning resistance, and then we've got percentage increased health and some extra physical resistance. The big thing with your chest piece is you want to find something with big armor. Having a big armor chest piece, this isn't the max amount of armor I could have, but a big armor chest piece will make a big difference for your base. And then the last thing that we're using is a Nihilus. Now, I got a terrible slam on this. I got increased minion damage, which does absolutely 0 for this build. But this thing can roll up to 12% increased health. It gives us mana. It gives us movement speed, all things we care about. And then it can also give us +2 to all of our skills. Mana regen. Mine got lucky, and I got 19% more armor, which is so much extra damage reduction, plus to all resistances. We do lose a bit of our health and ward when we use evade, but we get frenzy after we use evade. Frenzy is a 20% more multiplier to our attack speed, so we're going to be constantly evading while we're in combat to get extra damage. It is a ton of extra damage from this amulet. I think this is the best amulet in the game. You do farm this from Aberoth. You don't need to kill Uber Aberoth to get it. This build, by the way, face tanks Aberoth. I'm still working on getting Uber Aberoth done. I think I need a few more build upgrades, but hopefully we'll get that done soon. Lastly, for relics, I went and just stacked up vitality relics for more health and more damage. We're using 2 damage with smite relics, and then I needed to finish off my resistances. So I've got some percentage increased health with cold res, percentage increase with cold res. Your gear might be different. You might not need cold res, but I was kind of struggling to get the last little bit of cold res that I needed. So I'm using some percent increased health, and that is our gear. I'm not going to go over the full skill tree, and I'm still making some tweaks to it. My skill tree might look different than you might have to make yours, because for example, I've put 4 points here because I was struggling with fire resistance and void resistance. And so this was perfect for me. I kind of had to put 4 points here, but you might not have to. You could put more points into Valiant Charge, for example. Just kind of trying to figure out all my resistances. But the big difference with our skill tree is now we have Gladiator so that we can dual wield and put a sword in our offhand. And I also ended up putting 5 points into Blade Master. This is 30% more sword attack and cast speed, which is basically the equivalent of getting an additional T7 affix, which is incredibly valuable for our damage. And so that is kind of a big change that I've done to the skill tree. I'm still moving some points around because there's some things that I still want for the build. I'm still not level 100. But I ended up taking points out of Time Legion, because this was only 3% attack speed. The other one was 6. But hopefully I'm going to make some changes so I can get enough resistances, and then we can pick up Avatar of Regret. I'm kind of upset that I don't have this right now for the 10% increased armor and echo chance. But that is the Sentinel skill tree. Looks like this. This is the Void Knight skill tree. And then lastly, this is the Paladin skill tree. I did need to put more points into Defiance because I, once again, needed more elemental resistances. And then so I didn't get to put as many points into Blinding Light. If you don't have resistance issues, you can put more into Valor and more points into Blinding Light for even more blind chance. This is a very valuable, even just 1 point, to make sure that enemies are blinded so that they cannot critically strike you. I only have 50% spell critical strike chance. That obviously goes up if we have like our buffs and things. Like now it's 70%. But it's kind of tough. One of the best ways for scaling this build is with crit, and with Smite we're getting 6% extra base chance crit with Smite, which is a ton of extra crit chance. So my Smites have 100% crit chance on this build right now. But note that it won't display that way in our actual thing, because it's just displaying our general spell crit chance, not our Smite crit chance. And as you can see, like when we have our buffs up, we are at 100% crit chance with Smite. So just note that this spell crit rate is not something to be like super cognizant of, just because it's not going to be accurate for like the #1 source of our damage. One of the best ways to test is just go to the dummy. But if you follow along with the gear and grab, high crit chances, you will have no issue getting to 100% crit rate on Smite. Guys, that's going to do it for the video. I hope you enjoyed. Let me know if you got any questions. Drop them down in the comments below. And also, I've been live streaming this video, or streaming this build, for 88 hours now. We've been just gaming it over on Twitch. So if you have any questions, feel free to drop by and fire away. We've been hanging out for quite a while, and we still have quite a while more to hang out. So I'll catch y'all in the next one, guys. Take care. Peace.